It's literary as Feck time once again, and standing in for the absentee Nick is once again our good friend.
Gavin Whittaker, English Gav Crimson. Remember my name, that's a good start.
It's good start.
Yeah.
Don't worry, we're always this smooth on this show. Yes, so we're going to talk about some. Well, we're talking a book, and we're talking this book, Under the Counter: Britain's Trade in Hardcore Pornographic 8mm Films by Oliver Carter.
Yeah.
Who, I don't know, is he Dr. Oliver Carter? Yeah, he is Dr. Oliver Carter.
Yeah.
Reader in Creative Economies at the Birmingham Centre for Media and Cultural Research. So he's not just an old perv with a collection of 8mm.
No, not like girls.
Yeah, so I was clued into this book because Gav over at his blog, which shall put the link to at the bottom here, remember to do that. You wrote about this on your blog, right?
Yeah, I was blown away that such a book could have existed, really. I mean,
yeah,
considering how obscure this information is, and about British blue movies and actual hardcore stuff.
Yeah, I mean, it really puts some meat on the bones of something I kind of only really knew. So I mean, there's still a lot of work to be done, I suppose you could say, in terms of really specifying things like dates and performers and stuff. But no, I was also blown away as a good way to explain, like, just the wealth of information that he was sitting on before he published this is quite.
I'd say I've only seen about 5% of the film referenced in this book.
Yeah, and it's probably the same 5% that I've seen as things like Jolly Hockey Sticks and things like that, right? But no, it's one of those things that seems to have almost, pardon the pun, but seems to have appeared out of the blue, really, as well, isn't it? Is that like, I didn't expect this book.
No.
But and jump on it, as I would urge anyone who's at all interested in this subject matter to jump on it now, because it will go out of print and the prices will rise, I think, because I don't think anyone else is going to write a more definitive book for quite a while, right? Plus, it's on a university press as well, right? Which is always, you always have to pay a little bit more for university press books, don't you? So, I don't know where to start with this one, really. So, yes, I suppose it is the, as it says, the history of hardcore pornographic 8mm films for home consumption, pre-video era, or rollers, as they were referred to.
I think growing up, I think blue movies would be the sort of.
Yeah, or stag films, maybe.
Yeah, sort of rollers. I've heard the term a few times, but
right.
That seems to have been the way we referred to it at the time.
Yeah. Which is, again, it's fascinating. Like you said, I'd heard the term, but I didn't think of it as, but yeah, like that would have been he speaks the lingo of the time and space, right? Like that these things were taking place. And you do have to wonder about, I mean, the research must have been done just in little bits, dips and drabs. He must have gone back to the same people again and again over the years. And because getting some of this info, I would imagine, would be like hen's teeth, right? Because people wouldn't, because of the legality around a lot of it, people just talk about it.
It's not like these films have been documented. If you're like researching like softcore films that would have been released, and written about by critics, this is all, under the counter, really. It's not largely undocumented by anyone, really.
No, it's actually quite good. It makes a nice, it's kind of like the underground dark twin to David McGillivray's Doing Rude Things, isn't it, in a way?
Yeah, I suppose so, yeah.
They would make a good companion piece, I think.
Yeah, yes. Yeah.
But,
I mean,
yeah,
yeah, that's it. I mean, I remember a couple of years ago seeing a couple of like British blue films. Just wondering who made these things and what was the story, but I never expected I actually find out. I thought it would have been completely lost time. These people would have been dead, and as most of them are. But for someone to be able to piece all this together, the story
well,
of these people,
it's remarkable as well because you need such a focus of intent, and as interesting as it is to know information about these, like just to give an example, so there are pages and pages at the back which are tables and lists of titles and which labels they come under, which is invaluable. Like you said, it's probably tip of the iceberg stuff, really.
Oh yeah, some of those titles are incredible.
It's
Epic fucking.
it's all landfill, right? It's like
Yeah,
but yeah, but what I mean is it's as fascinating as to know about them. I mean, I'm wondering how fascinating to watch them. A lot of them are. So to be able to just stay on point and not wander off, and I admire Oliver Carter's dedication to, because you can imagine it would be so easy to just give up and fuck it, but
yeah,
because I don't know if I'd have the, I mean, I watch a lot of kind of junk, right? But I don't know if I could immerse myself in sort of purely watching this stuff. I'm sure he sometimes goes to the pictures and watches, I don't know, the Avengers or something. But obviously he's devoted a lot of his time to this, right? So I
yeah.
think he's a good doctor.
Those John Lindsay films can get a bit repetitious.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
But again, I suppose that's the thing is they were. I mean, it's funny actually. The one slight problem I have, I don't have a big problem with this book, but it is the thing about applying an academic eye to something that has a very clear utility, which rhymes with Barclays Bank, right? But so outside of that context, it's kind of difficult to almost um to maintain an interest. Do you know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
you can imagine like someone back in the day looking through a nave or something and finding a dwarf and that like that that powers the engine and all that. But to kind of take a clinical approach and overview and
yeah.
admirable. I mean, I might be wrong. He might have wanked himself into a coma while writing this book.
I don't know.
But it's interesting as well. So apparently, so the thing is that, so I know there's always been, yeah, I mean, even going back to the silence, you had smokers and things like that, right? But in terms of there being enough of it to be considered like a cottage industry, it seems as if not only was that a thing in the 60s, I knew it was in the 70s, but it wasn't. And apparently, the Brits were ahead of the pack as well in the 60s, right? More so than,
It's something like 1,000 films or something listed in this
yeah,
book.
because
Yeah,
pre hardcore, I mean, the Americans were pretty much still doing soft. I don't know pre hardcore. Well, there's some loops towards the end of the 60s, but yeah, apparently nothing like the amount of stuff that for some reason they didn't have the network that the Brits had for selling out of magazines and things like that. And that's even
yeah,
before they started. So the way I understand it is it was that way in the 60s, and it's a little bit later when it starts crossing borders and getting like Germany and Denmark and places like that. That's a little bit later on in the 70s, isn't it, with people like Glass Brown and but it was
yeah. Charlie Brown.
purely, yeah, but purely seems to be Brit filth in the 60s, right?
Well, apparently that Charlie Brown character, he's sort of, I think he's German or Polish or based in Germany. Apparently he had a sort of thing for like English road, British sort
Ah,
of German. So that's why he sort of, had a lot of that stuff produced in the UK.
Oh, okay.
rather than actual do it in Germany.
There's one of his films. It's got like a loop catcher. I can't remember. Is it Sex Maniacs or is it another one? I remember being really, really entertaining. It's the one where one of the loops. It's the one with the window cleaner, and I think it ends with him like coming in the camera lens or something like that. Like he gives
Oh yeah, that's the one with Clyde Rose in it.
right, yeah, yeah. I found that immensely entertaining. They were quite good fun. They were.
Yeah, I think was that shot from Mike Hunter or something? The
Yeah.
German.
But his stuff always had a little bit more panache, I think, a little bit more style. And he's another fascinating character. There's a bit of him in this book, but I think there's probably a whole book in his story, right? Because he seems a bit of a kind of escaping one head of the law, a bit of a Harry Allen Towers kind of figure, but of
Yeah,
low budget porn. So I definitely like to read. I one day there might be a bio on him, I think.
yeah.
Because who'd think we'd have a whole book about Joel M. Reed, right? So,
Oh God, yeah. Well, I think two biographies of Joel M. Reed.
oh, okay. I didn't know there was another one.
Well, I think wasn't it the Bill Landis one, and then there was the extremely derogatory of Joel M. Reed, and then there was
Right.
a later one,
Yeah.
a lot more sympathetic to it.
Yeah, where they go and hang out with him, don't they? And
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I've read that
yeah,
one.
because it's years later, so it's like at the end of the 90s, I think, right? And
Yeah,
Times
yeah,
Square
yeah.
isn't Times Square anymore, and
No,
but yeah, I find it a bit so the only one caveat I would this book is great. I'm glad this book exists. It's fantastic, but you do have to. There's a certain point you have to get to because it's an academic press book. It is occasionally bracketed in that way where when you get non-academic press books, they just tell you the information. Boom, they start. There might be an introduction or something, but with academic, there's always like a I will do this, and then I will
yeah,
express this, and then
yeah,
and you're like, all right, fair enough. And then at the end, there's I think I have shown that, and
yeah, yeah. They do.
yeah.
Yeah.
But once you get that out the way, the rest of it is
Oh
actually
yeah, there's
fascinating.
so much information. I mean, not just the history of British pornography, but also crime and
Yeah.
how police corruption. So much
Oh
of
yeah,
that.
that's a big part, right? Yeah, how the Rozzers were basically in on it to a certain extent, as long as they were getting a pay packet, right? And
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I was aware of police corruption, but it just seems to be so widespread.
oh, endemic, right? Like
You couldn't be a pornographer and not be, having to give bribes to the police.
yeah, I mean it makes perfect sense. I mean, if you think about like, I mean, Soho is such a I know it's a bit of a warren, but it's such a tiny little place, really. I mean,
Yeah,
it wouldn't be the hardest thing in the world to just, if you were serious, just to clean it up, right? Like it wouldn't
yeah,
take that much money. So clearly, yeah, it's allowed to exist, right?
yeah. It's like a sort of some tiny little island of films back then. I think.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
But it's interesting
independent.
that they also point out some other areas as well. Like I would have assumed being second city, I would have thought Manchester would be in this a lot more, but it's not. It's more like Birmingham and places like
Yeah, yeah. Some of those late sort of mid-70s John Lindsay films, for some reason, they all seem to be like. But the early ones were like all like continental. I think one was done in Germany and others in Amsterdam. And suddenly they all seem to be shot in Birmingham and sort
yeah, yeah.
of really grey
It's like
skies and buses.
I was slightly disappointed to learn that there wasn't a hub of filth in Wales. That was a bit disappointing. I was hoping we might have one somewhere. I don't think Scotland had one either, did they? I don't think.
Well, John Lindsay was Scottish. So.
Yeah, but I don't think he shot anything up there, did he? I don't think.
No, no.
No. Um, yes, and yeah. So that aside, I mean, even if you're not going to watch this stuff, I would urge anyone to because because I read this I read this like with a couple of bottles of wine over a couple of weekends. So I was just, it was like a thrilling read, I really enjoyed. So it's an entertaining book as well. Even if you have no intent on tracking down a copy of Schoolgirl Tromped von King Kong.
Oh, you should. Everyone should see the Schoolgirl.
Yes. I mean, I don't understand. If you don't want to see Schoolgirl Tromped von King Kong, then I don't understand what's wrong with you. What are your priorities? It's a hot young girl strapped to a giant gorilla's cock, as far as I can tell. I mean,
yeah.
It's what dreams are made of. But
but I mean, I think the rumor is that some of the people involved in that loop had sort of had worked on big film, TV stuff. They're actually
okay.
professional. So I find they don't like to talk about it or admit to doing that. Yeah.
It does look like it does look like it doesn't look shoddy. I haven't seen it. I've only seen the stills, but it looks like clearly people who know their craft made it.
Yeah.
Right. Like,
I'd love to know where the idea was to have a giant King Kong penis and woman riding on top of it.
Oddly enough, I did see recently on one of my visits to the Pink theaters here in Tokyo. I did see, and I can't remember which one it was. I should look this up. I did stumble across something from the early 80s, and there's an opening dream sequence where a girl comes across King Kong with a giant cock, and I think it either ejaculated or it might have pissed all over her, actually, if I remember correctly. But I thought, oh, there we go. There's someone else has had the same idea in another part of the world. Or maybe a 8mm reel found its way to Japan, and someone might have been inspired by.
I think the version I've seen seems like dubbed into Spanish or something.
Oh, okay.
Traveled a while. Yeah, I mean, it's fine. It's fine. It's a German producer, but I think it's German as well.
No, it's I mean, that's just one interesting thing that you will come across in this book, right?
King Kong's being.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, it speaks for itself. It's a bit difficult to you want to recommend it, but it's a bit difficult to articulate beyond. It is everything it's everything you didn't know that you wanted to know about this until now fairly hidden world, right?
Yeah, I mean, I was surprised to me that John Lindsay had died, actually, because I know people have been like trying to look way back in like 2006 something, and nobody even knew about him until this book came out in last year or so, and he was like died in total obscurity.
I think the only thing missing from, not necessarily missing from this book, but maybe I'd like to read somewhere else, maybe in a companion volume or something like that, is so the thing you focus on who was making these films, etc., whatever. But what's actually even more interesting in a way is who was buying this stuff, because it's very different from you hear people recollect about the Video Nasties era or whatever. That's interesting, but it's pretty much going down the video shop and rent. That's the end of the story, right? But you had to kind of be a committed. You had to send off them, and you had to take. And I'm sure lots of people were very clandestine about it, like they didn't want their families and people to find out that. And after they went to bed, maybe they'd set up the projector in the living room, or they went. I would imagine a lot of this was maybe, like a bunch of guys at the factory pooling resources.
Sort of show.
Yeah, and then showing
like
it.
Like in a Oh Lucky Man or something like that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But again, that's fascinating to me because we live in a world where it's come straight into our homes, and that's all you need is lock the door, or whatever, and you can have. But these men, and I'm sure it is 95% men, you'd have to go to a place, you'd get dressed up, and you'd drink pints, and I don't think the way I understand it, apart from maybe if you brought some girls in like that Oh Lucky Man, I think the Oh Lucky Man version is probably slightly elevated. I would imagine most of those like nights out or whatever probably wouldn't involve men wanking in front of each other. So I'm guessing it was, absorb as much as you can in the wank bank and then wait till you get home. And so that's kind of fascinating. It's a different way of consuming pornography, right?
Yeah, definitely different. My generation, where I thought did always feel like someone who worked at a factory, could get hold of things like video nasty or something like that.
Right. Yeah, because
Yeah.
I remember my old man used to have a tape that had done the rounds, like he'd lent that, and because in those you had to take what you could get, right? There wasn't the access that you had now. But but like this is one step further again, right? This is not even you'd at least have to know how to spool a projector, right? Like who knows how to do that anyway? Like an average person who's not into films or something.
Yeah, that's probably why it's probably to get passes and stuff like that. Yeah.
But I would like to hear. I'd love to hear those stories. I'd like to hear. Anonymous. Bill from Nottingham talks about his collection he had in his wardrobe, and if he took it out for his mates or something. Or it'd be fascinating to hear about all that.
There's an interesting film called Freelance. It's an early Ian McShane vehicle where he sort of goes around like playing blue movies like old men stuff like that. So I thought
What did you say?
maybe
It's
just
called Freelance.
Freelance. Yeah,
Freelance. I don't know that one. It's an Ian McShane film.
very very early. Yeah, so he's like this Jack the Lad Ian McShane character. He
Right.
goes around London showing like blue movies to people.
Oh, I don't know this one. I have to look that up. That sounds quite interesting.
Yeah, quite. Yeah.
So that's a little glimpse into maybe that.
Yeah, possibly how this stuff is shown.
And then fascinating as well to think about how and then it crosses over and then it gets into European, and there's a lot of back and forth, and that's a fascinating. So Oliver Carter has also written the foreword for the re-release of this book as well, Porn Gold, which I haven't read yet, but we may get into soon, which is a wider look at, I think, European porn of the 70s.
You do wonder if any of this stuff will ever come around again. The John Lindsay stuff or anything like that. I don't know if people will be falling over themselves to put this stuff back out.
No, yeah. Well, the reason about the European stuff as well is because I think it was even more of a problem there. No, not a problem for them, but because you have different sensibilities and different things like ages of consent and stuff like that. I think there's a lot of stuff now that's good luck. I mean that would be like trying to bring out Tracy Lord's box set or something, right? That's not happening anytime soon, right?
No, I don't think.
Because I wonder about that as well, actually. Because so even though, for instance, in some European countries, it would be the Tracy Lord stuff, for example, wouldn't be illegal, but I don't see any European distributors going out of their way to re-release that stuff. It's too notorious, or would it be legally problematic for non-US countries to put that stuff out? I don't know.
I imagine so, yeah. I thought the John Lindsay stuff, it's hard to know what's real and what's not real, sort of pseudo school stuff.
Yeah, and because it's a lot of it's filmed in schools and things as well, like proper schools, isn't it? Like
Yeah.
like well, Debbie Does Dallas was as well, though, wasn't it? I think was filmed at a proper.
Yeah, possibly, yeah.
Yeah, again, I don't know what the legal because I know in some places it is actually illegal to do any kind of sex act within a certain vicinity of a learning facility or something like that. So that is actually technically illegal, or I don't know.
Apparently, when I wonder how John Lindsay got into some of those places anyway. I mean, there are apparently like stories that he claimed that he was, from the BBC and making a documentary about a cycling competition or something like that. To get into these places.
Yeah, I'm guessing it's probably just slipping a caretaker a fiver or something, right?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, there's a lot of stories about John Lindsay being, somewhat slippery and untrustworthy character, and like people like sort of appeared in his films. They were given the impression they'd never be shown in the UK, just next door. And then a few years later, they'd be walking around Soho and see the films on public display. What I mean?
I'm surprised they haven't done. I would like to see a biopic along, because they did one on Paul Raymond, right? Which I don't remember much about, actually. I don't remember being massively keen on it, but
at the time, yeah.
Yeah, I have to rewatch it though, because yeah, it might be. I think I had certain expectations, right? And they weren't necessarily wanting to tell the Paul Raymond story. They were using it to do something else, right? So
yeah.
So if you take it like that, maybe it's a bit better. I have to rewatch it. But yeah, who can we get to play John Lindsay? Who would be a good thing for?
Yeah. Is anyone that ugly? I don't know.
Yeah, so yeah, I don't know what else is. I mean, there's an Under the Counter 2 coming, apparently.
Yeah.
I'm assuming that's gonna be video era.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know much about it. That's not my interest in this sort of stuff. Sort of decreases around the mid-80s. I don't really, relate to stuff.
But who knows what he might do? Because the thing is, if you think about it, we know about things like what's it called, death shock, right? Stuff like that. So I'm wondering if there was because if you think about it, it would make logical sense that videotape was even easier to make. I'm wondering if there might have even been a lot more not distributed through the proper legal channels, shot on video hardcore from late 70s and 80s.
Possibly. That stuff seems to be the really hard stuff to find, really. It's only because the market for unregulated video is only around for a couple of years compared to like the 8mm stuff where it's like 1960 to 1980. Yeah, this stuff is
right.
Yeah.
But it would have been so easy to make, though. You can imagine there would have been more hubs of it, maybe, and they were, I don't know, maybe much more local, like proper, just title scrawled on a VHS kind of thing, rather than packaging. And who knows, Oliver Carter will come up with for volume 2, but I'm sure he made his way through at least one box of tissues doing so. Let's put it that way. Do you have any other notes on under the counter, Gav?
No, but
yeah. So again, I think we both recommend this book, right?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, so much information.
I wonder how far away the second volume is.
Yeah, it must take a hell of a lot of stuff, to research.
Yeah. No, very impressive, and yeah, like we said, something we didn't expect to come along and filled a hole.
Definitely a story you didn't expect to be told.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, no need to belabor the point. Get it? It's really good. Yeah. All right. Cheers, Gav.
Okay.
See you again one day, no doubt, on here.
Yeah.
Goodbye.
Bye.